What's up, everybody? My name's Kenny Scott. I'm the founder and CEO of Paramify. And when people ask me what I do, most people lose interest really quick. So about 20 years ago, no, not that long, about 2 decades ago, I decided that I wanted to, I needed to get a job, and I was thinking I would do like Wall Street or something like that, because I like finance. Is anybody buying stocks today? Did anybody buy any stonks? Yeah, some. Okay, so I love markets so much, and I thought that's what I was gonna do, but then I took a computer science class and I started programming. Oh, that's pretty cool. So I wasn't one of those people that, I've been programming forever. And so I sucked pretty bad when I was like going to interview for things. But you know who would hire me was PwC. And at the time, they would hire anybody out of BYU with a pulse, right? So I fit in really good there with the people. And I loved the Bay Area. I loved the clients I was working on. And I loved it, man. I was like I loved that part, and I loved the food in the Bay, but the work was actually like soul-sucking. I freaking hated it. And every Sunday night, I'd have this like pit in my stomach, just like, Has anybody else had the pit in the stomach? Like Sunday night, and you're like, dude, I can't do it, babe. I can't. And I would still go anyway, and I'd go to work, And then I tried to do another startup with my friend, and I thought I was gonna be a billionaire, and I'd take my wife to like Los Gatos, and we'd go like get ice cream. I'm like, we're gonna have a house here. It's gonna be awesome. And the idea that I had was really stupid. So I was a really bad coder and also a bad business person, because I was just trying to build something that I thought was cool, And it turns out that people really don't care about your opinion about things that you don't know about. And so I learned that the hard way. I also wrote a bad script once that I took out a data center, a joint data center at the time. I just forked the process. I'm like, we need this parsing to go faster. And I'm like, done, let's fork it. And I didn't put an upper bound on it. And I found a vulnerability, right? And it was pretty freaking awesome. I took it out, went through the whole cage. They didn't have any controls there. So anyways, later that, I was like, this isn't working, but I still had kids I had a couple kids by then. And I'm like, I gotta take care of them. So my wife asked me, she's like, hey, she goes like, hey, so what is it that you actually really hate? You always complain, right? And she's pretty good to, just listen. And she's like, so what do you actually hate? I'm like, just generally, I hate everything about it. But I was still in that job. And she's like, no, you got to get specific. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'm just putting things together in my own brain, kind of going through my own personal wilderness, just thinking, what do I do? Lots of Zoolander moments. And, I thought to myself, if you focus on the problems that are in your sphere of influence and you focus on fixing those, your sphere of influence can grow. And I do like problem solving quite a bit. And what I figured out was hey, the last business I had, no one wanted to pay me because no one cared about the problem. But when you're a consultant, guess what they do? They give you problems that no one else wants to solve. So somebody in a cost center goes oh man, I want to go on vacation. We're going to Hawaii, got Tahiti coming up. And I don't want to do this freaking FedRAMP document, And so they give that to consultants because the consultants are happy to charge their rate and just, stick a body on it. And that's what I said, remember? Anybody with a pulse, right? And that's their model, right? Now, I don't want to disparage them too much because there's a ton of stuff that I started to figure out. And eventually, once I started focusing on the problems in my sphere of influence, dude, everything changed for me. And I all of a sudden had a great career, and that was how I got into security. It was from the governance side, and I had a little bit of technical experience, not good, but familiarity. And I was never like, like Bryce or anybody else like that could do something really cool with, tools, and all the other guys that are presenting today are doing something of value. So where I found my niche was, how do I make risk management approachable for everybody? Because you know what I found is that humans, we're not really good at gauging risk. And sometimes we over-click on risk and we don't do things. And that is just my experience. So what we're going to talk about today is risk management. And so what do you guys think about when you think about risk? Huh? Anybody? Yeah, what? You're scared of risk. Yeah, scary. You know what I think of? We think of, it's not working. We think of Star Wars, okay? So today I'm gonna teach you what Star Wars teaches us about risk, and if you've seen this already, you're in luck, you get to hear it again. So, I forgot to change the date, sorry. So here we go. You guys know it, right? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was an asset, a big asset.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Right? Big, huh? I think this is from a video game, this one. Who knows the video game? Nobody. And it's a planet killer. There goes Alderaan. Okay, so that's your first thing when you think about risk, is your asset. Okay, how big is it? How important is it? This is one of the most epic fails in all of science fiction. And so we're gonna double click on it. Many, brave, noble people have given up their social lives to give us numbers on the real impact that happened. Okay.
So, the reactor module, that's the key. That's the place I've laid my trap. It's well hidden and unstable. One blast to any part of it will destroy the entire station.
Right? Okay. This is the vulnerability, right? Every asset, there might be a vulnerability on it. How big is the thermal exhaust port? Does anybody know? The size of a womp rat. We used to Luke Skywalker would nail womp rats with his T-16 back on Tatooine. How big are they? Yes. I knew you guys wouldn't disappoint me. I knew it. Okay, so but then we got a threat, right? Got an X-Wing. Do you guys like that icon? I worked on it for 7 hours. Okay, so we got the threat right here. And then we got controls. Okay, stormtroopers.
Take over.
Right? Turrets. Got the dark side of the Force, right? And, I worked a long time on those too. If you want them, I can share them, okay? All right.
I have you now.
All right. So he's all confident with his control, and then, right? Those controls, and then what happens to the controls? Right? LOL, dude, control failure. Right? Here comes, right? And then we have what? Impact, right? Controls failed. Oh, I didn't. It's on my. Dang it, dude. I forgot to load it, All right, anyways. Okay, so what's the total cost? Who knows how to read this number? There's comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, six commas. Does that make it septillion? 193 septillion galactic credits, right? not intergalactic credits. It's just the galactic. There's one galaxy, right? Far, far away. So in that galaxy, 193. And this is a long time ago, so adjust for inflation. Jeez, dude. Right? Okay, so we estimate, this is from Wikipedia, right? We said, okay, so it's probably about 1.5 million, head count, stormtroopers. So you got to price that in. Pay them like 130, right? That's back then. That was a lot. That was a good living. Here it's like basically your budget for DoorDash, right? So 130K credits, and they're also priceless, right? The stormtroopers. Okay, so what is the GDP, of that, right? How many commas is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 commas. Octillion? So about almost 5 octillion. How many seconds? How many years? Dude, these numbers are just insane. Massive numbers. And then 20 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many? Okay, so yeah, 92. I didn't have to count those again. I could have just gone 4 times. Yeah. Okay. All right, so 92 octillion. That's so much, right? So they didn't really cost this out, right? Is my feeling. This is what they didn't do, right? So, anyways, I was bugged about this, and Angie was wondering what the heck's going on, and it's bugging me, right? Why didn't the Empire put more controls around the thermal exhaust port? Okay, I found the exact meme of what was in my brain. Okay, so what even is risk management? Does anybody have a good definition? Who has a good definition for risk management? Okay. All right, let's start with inherent risk, okay? Here we go. So the inherent risk is the inherent likelihood and the inherent impact of a threat exploiting a vulnerability without any controls in place, okay? So if you have a server that's in a garage, what's the inherent risk associated with physical security versus the inherent risk of a server that's in an AWS data center, right? So those are some really easy ways to think about it, okay? Okay, so we've got a few options that we can do, okay? These are not mine, but I kind of say them anyway. So the first thing with a risk is you say, hey, am I gonna do something about this? Okay, so you make a decision, am I gonna mitigate this risk? So you're gonna add controls and you're gonna optimize the process, so that, you can mitigate that risk to the lowest possible. The risk is never zero, but you're gonna make that decision. The next thing you can do is share the risk like it's a pizza, okay? So some other things that we do for sharing the risk, like cloud is a good example. So a lot of us on our systems that we build, we use S3, right? Or we use EKS, in Amazon, or we use cloud storage in Google, or whatever it is. Google shares that risk with you, the end user, right? So for S3, they do all this stuff to make sure that there's encryption enabled, and they put all these controls on them. But at the end of the day, the person who has the controls around configuring that, the end user, you can open that up for the world so you can break all of the controls that have been given to you. So there's a shared risk model there, right? It's split between 2 people or more sometimes. We'll talk through it in some examples later. Next thing you can do is you can transfer the risk. Okay, so the risk of someone driving a truck into an AWS data center and stealing all the hard drives, and you don't have to worry about that, right? Because AWS has that for you. They have wall-mounted machine guns and all that stuff for Those are the things that we assume are in place, right, to protect our data, right? So you transfer that. There's nothing you can do for that, okay? The other thing you can do is just, see the risk and you're just like, whatever, right? Take a sip of your coffee and you're just like, it's fine. The other thing you can do is avoid it, right? So I always say, this is like me, like when I was dating, I was just too scared, right, to go out there. So I just said, I'm not even gonna try. Okay, so that's like inherent risk, and we gotta make a decision. And so after we've made a decision, the residual risk is the inherent likelihood and the inherent impact of a risk exploiting a vulnerability with the controls in place, okay? So that's your residual risk, okay?
You're letting her keep it. Would you like to know the probability of her using it against you? It's high.
Let's get going. Okay, so how do we assess risk? We suck at it generally, right? It's hard to do, and it's just so unknowable. So we're going to talk about the methods that you use to assess risk. Anybody know, there's two methods that I'm looking for, right, for assessing risk. There's one that's called, they both start with the letter Q. What's one of them? Quantitative and qualitative, okay? Okay, we usually start with qualitative. That's the one that we really start with. And here, what I want everyone to understand is when you're doing qualitative risk assessment, you're looking at the experience of the person who is doing the qualitative risk assessment. So if, like for me, when I was like thrown into PwC, I didn't know anything about anything. If I'm doing a risk assessment, I'm gonna suck really bad because I don't understand people's environments. So when you're thinking about qualitative risk assessment, you're looking for people who have been burnt, right? People who have gone through a couple incidents, people who understand things, right? And a lot of times people will outsource a gap assessment to someone who has no freaking idea, right, of their environment. And so you're gonna get the mediocre result that you deserve if you do that. Okay, so you can't abdicate these things to someone who has no idea. Okay, so let's go through a qualitative risk assessment. Let's say Star Wars is real, okay? Let's say Star Wars is real, and we know about the lore, we know about, Darth Vader, right? We've seen him in staff meetings, right? We see how he handles it, right? He gets upset, right?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
So good.
Enough of
this. And so you go up, what if you go up to this guy and you have no idea, and he's at a bar, and you say, hey dude, which one of those buttons calls your mom to pick you up, right? We would know, like, hey dude, you cannot do that to him, right? So like, what's the risk of death if you're in a saber duel with Vader, right? For us, we know, right? It's high. Like K2SL is really high. You're gonna die, okay? Okay, but here's the tougher one, right? How do you do qualitative risk assessment on the thermal exhaust port? Okay, what's the likelihood of these two bombs flying like a freaking crazy speed and they make a perfect 90-degree turn into the little womp rat-sized exhaust port? Most people are like, come on, dude, no. And so you're saying,
one blast to the reactor module and the whole system goes down. That's how you said it. The whole system goes down. Get to work!
I love that. Okay. All right. So we would say, okay, we're like, dude, it's really low. It's really low that happens. And then you could say, like, the impact, I don't know, it's probably not going to blow the whole system down. And they're like, I don't know, is it really moderate or is it just low? Remember, they're probably thinking no big deal, right? So when you go to your manager or to your director or your VP or you're making some sort of risk decision and you don't have data here, you're getting like, it's really, really hard to explain to someone the risk of something. Really, really difficult. And I've been on those situations. So what's the risk, Kenny? High. It's high. Or it's low. What does that mean? Right? And so that's where we go into the quantitative risk. Okay. And so we're going to put some numbers to this, thanks to all the nerds that helped us out. Okay. This is my super simple quantitative risk assessment equation that I use. Okay. And I don't use it very often because it's really hard, but let's just look at how we might do it, like from a poor man's perspective. Okay, so we've got R equals risk impact, T equals the threat, V equals vulnerability, and assets, let's let that be assets impacted. And then what we need to do is we need to solve for the probability, okay? And so, fortunately for us, we know what the probability of this happening was, right? Why? Who knows what it was? What was the probability? Right? Okay, so let's put some numbers in here. We got all those huge commas, like lots of commas. We've got one X-wing, we got a small exhaust port, but we need, what is the probability? Okay, great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million. Okay, so we've solved for it, right? Right there, dude. We've solved for it. That's not, dude, chump change, 92 billion, man. Just spend it, man. And it looks like, I don't know, they could have put like 92 billion of controls around there. I don't know. So they blew it, right? And, risk assessment's really hard. Right? It is really hard, like to do this. It requires experience and data, and you can't overclick on everything. You got to move fast usually. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the things that I do. I think the future of risk management looks a lot like it does today, and then except now we have the advent of AI. So for qualitative, these are my rules. Qualitative experience matters, quantitative data matters, and artificial intelligence humans matter. And so I'm going to talk about some of those things. So here's some little figmas that I put together for how I think about, how to do quick risk assessments, and we do this at Paramify, right? So we think of everything in terms of a stack, okay? So a stack could be something as big as a company, or it could be something as small as like your little IT team. And there's usually some sort of purpose for which you exist, right? So if a company exists, this is what we do. Here is the data that we need. So what is the data that you need to consume to fulfill your purpose? And we start there. Is that data really important? Is it really sensitive personal information? Then the import of the protections goes up. If it's just like, analytics and it's not that important, it might be super low impact. And that's really important to understand. Then you see, once you've decided how important it is, you go through what are the people, what are the process, and what's the technology that's used, to put that together. If you do that one thing alone, just understanding the data flows within your environment, that changes the game for everything. You start there, and everything becomes a little bit simpler right at the very beginning. Okay, so let's see here. Then you think about what are some of the cyber threats associated with those stacks, right? So smishing attack, what is it going to do? It's going to That's the path, right? Someone gets tricked, happens all the time, unfortunately, and then from there, those people can exploit the technology and get to the data. You can have SQL injection, where someone might take advantage of a really bad, vulnerability management process, and so you can exploit those unpatched apps with SQL injection. That would be the path. And then simply, maybe a service outage. What's the risk of something getting fat-fingered altogether, right? So yeah, I like to think in terms of that, and then, this is not the right. Give me a second. Come on. Wait a second. Keaton, oh, I'm scared. I can't find it. I'm trying to escape. Okay, so what we do is we do these things called risk solutions. So everybody that gets into our platform, we set up a bunch of risk solutions for them. Just like right out of the box based on the normal processes that we see. Okay, so what are some of the things that can mitigate risk, right? So strong multi-factor authentication mitigates the risk associated with smishing by a lot. Okay, that's a really easy one, and it's crazy how much doesn't have that, right? Super easy, right? And then setting that up correctly is important too, right? Like the MFA bombing, where do you want to put your authentication, right? Web app scans, those are other risk solutions. Some of you guys do this for your companies. You're scanning apps and you're finding the vulnerabilities. Those DDoS mitigation techniques, Route 53 can be a part of that. AWS Shield can be a part of that. Cloudflare has a great solution for this. You know, people, you don't have to like reinvent the wheel, right? And then automated backup. Again, the risk there is greatly mitigated if you're using a cloud solution that has all of this stuff backed up. Like S3 going to a different region is so freaking easy versus if you're in a data center, you're gonna have to put together some other solution, right, for that, right? Okay, so anyway, let me kind of go out of this one more time. Let me see what else I put in here. Let's see here. Escape, I said. Okay, anyway, we'll do that. Continuous assessment. Okay, yeah, I'm cool here. No big deal. You just, yeah, what is that? Continuously assessing these different areas, right? Technology, process, is there an issue here? Having a way to kind of continuously assess within your stack where these things happen, you know? There's great tools out here to do this, and you don't actually need to buy a SaaS. You don't need Paramify to do this. It's just a matter of inventorying your people, process, and tech, right? The data drives how important it is. The data drives how important it is and what kind of protections you need to have in place. You don't need to protect everything, right? You don't have the same protection measures on all areas, right? So this is my real simple way of thinking about risk management altogether. Okay, so let's go back and find where I'm at. Okay, so keep it simple. Keep it the size of a womp rat, right? That's all. That's all. You can be my friend. You can connect on LinkedIn. You can follow us at Paramify. Really appreciate the time. And if you have any questions, yeah. You can come say hi. If you want this presentation, I can share it with you. Cool. Ciao.